Abandoned in the dark. The emergency lights of the Nebulon science vessel cast long shadows across the bridge, bathing everything in a sickly amber glow. Captain Salver stood at the viewport, his forearms crossed tightly against his chest, the ridges on his forehead deepening as he stared out at the desolate landscape of planet XT-47. The ship had been grounded for 73 cycles now, almost half a standard galactic year, and with each passing day, the likelihood of rescue grew more remote. "Status report," he said, not turning from the viewport. Behind him, Science Officer Lenny's delicate fingers danced across the console. Her gossamer skin reflected the dim light as she sighed. "Life support remains at 48% capacity, Captain. Food supplies will last another 20 cycles if we maintain current rationing. Water recycling is operating at reduced efficiency." Salver's outer eyelids closed briefly, a gesture of resignation that he would never allow his crew to see directly. When he turned, his posture was straight, his voice steady. "And communications?" "Still nothing," said communications specialist Freen, frustration evident in the way his neck frills flattened against his scaled skin. "I've sent out the distress signal on all frequencies recognized by the Galactic Alliance. If anyone is listening within 3 parsecs, they would hear us. But no one is listening." Salver finished the thought. It wasn't a question. The science vessel Nebulon had been on a routine survey mission when they encountered the spatial anomaly. It had appeared without warning, a swirling tear in the fabric of space that the sensors hadn't detected until it was too late. The ship's engines had been crippled, forcing them to make an emergency landing on the nearest habitable planet, an unmapped rock designated only as XT-47. Their initial distress signals had been acknowledged by Alliance Command. Help was coming, they were told. Wait for extraction. That was 73 cycles ago. The last communication they received, 40 cycles past, had been vague about delays and resource allocation priorities. Since then, silence. "Chief Engineer Tricka wishes to speak with you," Lenny said, interrupting his thoughts. "She's in the engine room." Salver nodded and left the bridge, making his way through corridors that were noticeably cooler than they should be. Energy conservation measures grew more extreme with each passing cycle. The engine room was a tangle of exposed conduits and dismantled components. In the center of it all, Engineer Tricka was barely visible, her lower half protruding from beneath the primary power converter. Only her thick, segmented legs identified her as carapacian. "You wanted to see me, Chief," Salver called out. There was a metallic clang, followed by a string of technical curses in her native tongue. Tricka extracted herself from the machinery, her exoskeleton covered in lubricant and coolant fluids. "Captain," she said, antennae twitching in agitation, "I've managed to bypass the damaged sections of the antimatter containment system, but it's not a permanent solution. We're looking at complete power failure within 40 cycles, maybe less if we can't reduce consumption further." Salver felt the weight of his command pressing down on him. 16 crew members, 16 lives, depended on his decisions. "What do you need?" "A miracle," Tricka said bluntly, her compound eyes reflecting the emergency lights, "or replacement parts that don't exist on this rock. The damage to the propulsion system is beyond what we can repair with available materials. Keep working, Chief. Focus on extending life support as long as possible." Tricka's mandibles clicked in what Salver recognized as frustration. "With respect, Captain, we need to face reality. No rescue is coming. The Alliance has abandoned us." Salver bristled. "We don't know that." 73 cycles. Tricka countered. "We know exactly that." The truth of her words stung, but Salver wouldn't accept defeat. "Continue your work, Chief Engineer." "That's an order." Back on the bridge, he found the atmosphere had changed. There was a tension, an alertness that hadn't been there before. "Captain," Breen called, his frills now fully extended in excitement or alarm. "We're detecting a ship approaching the planet." Hope and caution warred within Salver. Alliance. Unknown configuration. Lainey responded, her gossamer fingers moving rapidly over the sensor controls. It doesn't match any known Alliance vessel design. It's smaller than our ship, but the energy signature, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. The comm system crackled to life with a voice speaking a language that sounded vaguely familiar yet utterly foreign. The ship's translation matrix struggled to process it. Repeat, this is Captain Maya Rise of the Earth vessel Horizonte. We've detected your distress signal. Do you require assistance? Over. Earth. The word sent a shock through the bridge crew. Earth was a legend, a lost world. Humans were believed extinct or mythical by most of the younger species in the Alliance. This is Captain Salver of the Galactic Alliance science vessel Nebulon. He responded carefully. We are stranded with critical system failures. Any assistance would be appreciated. He hesitated before adding, Did you say Earth vessel? There was a pause, then, affirmative, Nebulon. We are an Earth vessel. Request permission to establish orbit and send a shuttle to your coordinates. Salver exchanged glances with his bridge crew. If this was truly a human ship, it raised more questions than it answered. Earth had supposedly been destroyed or abandoned centuries ago during the Third Expansion War. Yet here they were, apparently responding to a distress call that the mighty Alliance had ignored. Permission granted, Horizonte. We'll transmit landing coordinates for your shuttle. As the transmission ended, Lonnie whispered what they were all thinking. Humans. After all this time. Legends often contain kernels of truth, Salver said, feeling a strange mix of hope and unease. Assemble a greeting party. Let's not be poor hosts, regardless of who or what is coming to visit. The waiting was the hardest part. The crew gathered at the observation deck, watching as the unknown ship entered orbit. It was sleek, with lines that suggested both efficiency and elegance, nothing like the utilitarian designs of Alliance vessels. As promised, a smaller craft detached and began its descent toward their position. Weapons? Salver asked quietly. Security Chief Morven, a hulking basilisk with silicon-based skin that resembled cracked stone, rumbled his response. If the sensor readings are accurate, they are armed but defensive systems only. Nothing that suggests aggression. The shuttle landed a safe distance from the Nebulon with barely a sound. Another indication of technology beyond what the Alliance typically deployed. The crew watched, breath held collectively, as the shuttle's hatch opened and several figures emerged. They were Bictal, with a familiar body structure that matched the historical records of humans. They wore form-fitting suits that seemed to shimmer slightly, suggesting environmental protection, or perhaps something more. One figure removed their helmet, revealing features that were both alien and somehow recognizable to species that had never seen a human in person. Dark hair framed a face with two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Common enough features across many species, yet arranged in that distinctly human way. The figure approached, hands visible and empty. A universal gesture of non-aggression. Captain Salver, the human called out. I'm Captain Maya Rise. We picked up your distress signal 3 days ago. Sorry it took us so long to get here. 3 days. The Horizont had traveled a distance that would take most Alliance ships weeks, responding to a distress call within days of detecting it, while the Alliance itself had left them to die for over 70 cycles. Salver stepped forward, trying to mask his surprise. Captain Rice, your assistance is unexpected but welcome. I was under the impression that Earth was no longer in communication with the greater galaxy. A smile spread across the human's face, an expression Salver recognized from xenobiology studies, but had never witnessed firsthand. It was both disarming and enigmatic. That's a diplomatic way of putting it, Rise replied. The official story is that we were wiped out in the war, right? The Alliance finds it convenient to let the galaxy believe that. We find it convenient not to correct them. Until situations like this arise. She gestured to the grounded Nebulon. Your ship has taken quite a beating. My engineers have reviewed the scans. We can help with repairs, but some systems will need complete replacement. Why? The question escaped Salver before he could consider its diplomatic implications. Why would you help us? The Alliance abandoned you. Rice finished. Just like they abandoned Earth when it was more convenient to declare us a lost cause than to send aid during the swarm attacks. Some things never change. The bitterness in her voice was unmistakable, yet there was something else too. A resolve, a strength that seemed etched into her very bearing. One of the other humans approached, helmet removed to reveal an older face with lines of experience. Captain, preliminary assessment complete. Their antimatter containment system is... Rise nodded. This is my chief engineer, Dr. Elias Chen. He can work with your team to prioritize repairs. Salver found himself studying these humans, beings out of legend, supposedly extinct, yet standing before him offering salvation when his own people had left him to die. He made his decision. Chief Engineer Tricka will coordinate with your team. Dr. Chen, we gratefully accept your assistance. As the two groups merged and began discussing technical matters, Reyes moved closer to Salver, speaking quietly. You're wondering if there's a catch, she said. Why humans would appear out of nowhere to help an Alliance vessel. The thought had crossed my mind, Salver admitted. Reyes looked up at the sky, where her ship orbited unseen. Let's just say we have our reasons for staying in the shadows, watching. But we never abandoned our humanity. When someone calls for help, we answer. It's that simple. But Salver, with his years of diplomatic training, knew nothing in the galaxy was ever that simple. As he welcomed these humans aboard his stranded vessel, he couldn't shake the feeling that this rescue was just the beginning of something much larger, something that might reshape the very understanding of galactic history. And as human engineers began unloading equipment from their shuttle, technology that appeared far more advanced than anything the Alliance possessed, Salver realized that the legends of humanity's demise may have been greatly exaggerated. For better or worse, humanity had not only survived, they had thrived in secret, evolving beyond what the galaxy remembered. The question was, why reveal themselves now? The edge of possibility. The human engineers moved with purpose, their actions precise and methodical as they worked alongside the Nebulon's crew. Captain Salver observed them from the doorway of the engine room, still trying to process the reality of their existence. Humans, not extinct, not primitive, but advanced beyond anything the Alliance had achieved. Engineer Tricka worked side by side with Dr. Chen, her initial skepticism fading rapidly as she witnessed the humans' expertise. Their conversation was a rapid-fire exchange of technical jargon, punctuated by moments of shared understanding that transcended species differences. Your containment field design is elegant, Chen remarked, examining the damaged antimatter system. But this alloy. He ran a small device over the metal, and holographic data appeared above it. It's vulnerable to subspace radiation decay. That's what caused the cascade failure. Tricka's antennae twitched in surprise. Alliance shipyards claim this alloy has a half-life of 3 centuries. Chen's laugh was short, almost rueful. They've been making that claim for 4 centuries. The human fleet abandoned this material after the Battle of Proxima. Too many ships lost to unexpected core breaches. This casual reference to ancient history, spoken as if from first-hand knowledge, sent a chill through Salver. The Battle of Proxima had occurred 247 years ago, according to Alliance history. If humans had learned this lesson then. Captain Salver, Maya Raya's voice interrupted his thoughts. She approached from the corridor, holding a data tablet. My communications officer has intercepted some Alliance transmissions you should see. In the privacy of his quarters, now serving as an impromptu meeting room, Salver reviewed the data Rice provided. Encoded Alliance communications, perfectly decrypted, revealing the truth of their abandonment. Not a matter of logistics or priorities, but a deliberate decision. The Nebulon's research was deemed problematic, Rice explained, her expression grim. Your findings about the spatial anomaly threaten certain Alliance theoretical models that support their current power structure. The revelation struck Salvard like a physical blow. They left us to die because of scientific disagreement. Politics disguised as scientific consensus, Rise corrected. The Alliance has been suppressing discoveries that might destabilize their authority for generations. Your crew isn't the first to be abandoned for asking the wrong questions. Salvar's inner eyelids fluttered rapidly, a sign of distress he couldn't suppress. How do you know this? How do you intercept and decode our most secure channels? Rice hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. We've been watching the Alliance for centuries. After Earth was declared a lost cause, humanity didn't just survive. We adapted. We built shadow colonies beyond Alliance space. We developed technologies they couldn't imagine because they were too invested in their existing paradigms. She activated a holographic display that showed star systems Salvard didn't recognize. We call this the Concordance. 37 settled systems, hundreds of outposts, all outside Alliance scanning range. We've been there, rebuilding, remembering, and watching the Alliance repeat the same mistakes that nearly destroyed Earth. The magnitude of this revelation was almost too much to comprehend. An entire human civilization, hidden from the galaxy, technologically superior and apparently extensive. Why reveal yourselves to us? Salvar asked. Why now? Because something is coming, Rice said, her voice dropping. Something the Alliance isn't prepared for. And when it arrives, the galaxy will need every ally it can find, including those it once abandoned. Before she could elaborate, alarms blared throughout the ship. Both captains rushed to the bridge, where Vreen was frantically working his console. Alliance signatures, he reported. 3 warships entering the system. They're on an intercept course. They're not responding to hails, Lani added, her gossamer skin paling with stress. Rice tapped a communication device on her wrist. Horizonte, this is Captain Reyes. Implement Shadow Protocol. Be prepared for immediate extraction. She turned to Salvar. They're not here for a rescue. Those are Enforcer-class vessels. The designation sent ice through Salvar's veins. Enforcers were used for problem elimination, a euphemism for destroying evidence of Alliance failures or inconvenient truths. How much time? He asked. At their current velocity, 28 minutes until they're in weapons range, Lani answered. Reyes studied the tactical display. Not enough time to complete repairs for your ship to achieve escape velocity. She made a quick decision. We need to evacuate your crew to the Horizonte. Abandon the Nebulon. Salvar couldn't keep the shock from his voice. The ship contained years of research, irreplaceable data. We can't save the ship, Rives said firmly. But we can save the data and the crew. My engineers have already begun transferring your core databases to our systems. Without authorization. Salvar bristled. Without wasting time, Rice countered. Captain, those ships aren't coming to ask questions. The Alliance has already written you off. They're coming to ensure there's nothing left to find, including survivors who might tell inconvenient truths. As if to punctuate her point, Vreen's console lit up with new alerts. Energy signatures from the lead vessel. They're powering weapons systems. Reyes' expression hardened. They're planning to fire from beyond standard range. They don't even intend to give you the courtesy of a surrender demand. The reality of their situation crashed down on Salvar. His crew, his people, had been judged and sentenced without trial by the very organization they'd served faithfully. Begin evacuation, he ordered, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. Essential personnel only. Everyone else to the shuttle bay immediately. As the crew scrambled to follow orders, Reyes contacted her ship again. Horizonte, deploy countermeasures. Buy us time. From orbit, the human vessel released several small objects that rapidly accelerated toward the approaching Alliance warships. On the tactical display, Salvar watched in fascination as the objects created massive sensor distortions. What are those? He asked. Quantum scramblers, Rice explained. They'll confuse their targeting systems, make it harder for them to get a weapons lock. It won't stop them, but it will slow them down. The evacuation proceeded with remarkable efficiency. The human shuttle made multiple trips, ferrying Nebulon crew members to the waiting Horizonte. Meanwhile, Engineer Treka and Dr. Chen worked frantically to download the ship's scientific database. Their weapons are active, Lenny reported from the increasingly empty bridge. They're firing blind through the interference. The first impacts rocked the planet's surface several kilometers away. The Alliance ships were firing indiscriminately, hoping to hit their target through the sensor confusion. "Time to go, Captain," Rise urged as the last of the crew except for the bridge officers boarded the shuttle. Salver took a final look at his ship, his home for the past 7 years. "What about the research, the anomaly data?" "Secured," Treka confirmed, emerging from the corridor with Dr. Chen. "We've transferred everything to the Horizon's quantum storage." As they boarded the final shuttle run, the ground shook violently. The Alliance ships were getting closer to their target. The shuttle lifted off, accelerating away from the doomed science vessel with thrust capabilities that defied Salver's understanding of propulsion physics. From the shuttle's viewport, they watched as energy beams finally found their mark. The Nebulon erupted in a series of explosions, decades of Alliance engineering reduced to scrap in moments. "They're still firing," Vreen observed, his frills flat against his neck in distress. "They're making sure nothing survives." The shuttle docked with the Horizonte, which was already maneuvering away from the planet. Once aboard, Salver was struck by the stark contrast between this vessel and Alliance ships. Everything was streamlined, elegant, with technology that seemed to anticipate needs rather than merely respond to commands. On the Horizon's bridge, the situation became clear. The Alliance warships had detected their departure and were now in pursuit. "They're hailing us," a human officer reported, demanding we identify ourselves and surrender any Nebulon survivors. Rice took her command chair. No response. "Prepare the phase drive." The term was unfamiliar to Salver. Phase drive. "You might want to secure yourselves," Rice suggested, gesturing to specialized seats along the bridge's perimeter. "The first jump can be disorienting for those not accustomed to it." The Alliance ships were closing rapidly, weapons charging for another attack. Salver watched the tactical display with growing dread. The Horizonte was fast, but no ship could outrun energy weapons once in range. "Phase drive engaged," the helmsman announced. What happened next defied Salver's understanding of physics. The stars outside seemed to stretch, then blur, and for a brief, nauseating moment, reality itself appeared to fold. When his vision cleared, the pursuing ships were gone, as was the star system they had occupied. What just happened?" Lenny asked, her gossamer skin fluctuating with distress. "Phase shifting," Dr. Chen explained, entering the bridge. "We didn't just move through space. We moved slightly out of phase with normal space-time. The Alliance can't follow because they don't have the technology. They don't even have the theoretical framework to understand it." Reyes turned to face the stunned Nebulon survivors. "Welcome to the edge of possibility, friends. The place where humanity has been living since the Alliance declared us extinct." In the hours that followed, as the Horizonte traveled toward human space, using its incomprehensible drive, Salver learned the truth, or at least the human perspective on it. Earth had indeed been devastated during the Third Expansion War, but not destroyed. Abandoned by their allies, humans had retreated, regrouped, and evolved. They discovered the principles of phase technology while studying the very same spatial anomalies that the Nebulon had been researching. The Alliance suppresses this research because it threatens their control of strategic resources, Rise explained in the ship's conference room. Phase technology renders traditional defenses obsolete. Borders become meaningless. Their entire power structure collapses. "But why reveal yourselves to us?" Salver pressed. "After centuries of secrecy." Rice activated a holographic display showing a massive spatial distortion, far larger than the anomaly that had disabled the nebulon. This was detected at the edge of what you call the void expanse. It's growing. Based on our models, it will reach Alliance core worlds within 3 years. Trika studied the data, her antennae rigid with concentration. This is similar to what we discovered, but on an impossible scale. Not impossible, Dr. Chen corrected. Inevitable. The fabric of space-time is responding to centuries of misuse. Alliance warp technology tears holes that never fully heal. They've known this for generations but suppressed the research because changing course would be too costly. And now? Salver asked. Now it's too late for small measures, Ray said. The coming storm will render vast regions of space permanently uninhabitable. Billions will die unless we act together. And you expect the Alliance to listen to a species they've written out of history, to refugees they tried to eliminate. Ray smiled, that enigmatic human expression that Salver was beginning to recognize as signifying confidence rather than amusement. No, Captain. We expect them to listen to you. A respected Alliance scientist with irrefutable data and first-hand experience of both the threat and the Alliance's willingness to sacrifice truth for convenience. The audacity of the plan stunned Salver. You want us to be your ambassadors. We want you to be truth-tellers. Rice corrected. Humanity has the technology to mitigate this disaster, but we can't implement it alone, and we won't risk revealing ourselves only to be attacked out of fear and ignorance. Salver looked around at his surviving crew members, seeing in their expressions the same conflict he felt internally. They had dedicated their lives to Alliance science, to the pursuit of knowledge for the betterment of all species. Yet that same Alliance had abandoned them, tried to erase them when their discoveries became inconvenient. What exactly do you propose? He asked finally. Rise leaned forward. We'll take you to Concordance Prime, our main world. Show you what humanity has built in the shadows. Give you the complete data on the spatial degradation and our solutions. Then, if you choose, we'll help you reach sympathetic ears within the Alliance scientific community. And if we choose not to help, then we'll still give you sanctuary, Rice said simply. We don't abandon people, Captain. That's the difference between us and the Alliance. As the Horizont continued its journey through phase space, Salver stood alone in the observation deck, watching the strange patterns of light that were unlike anything visible in normal space. He thought about history, about legends, about the stories told of humanity. They had been described as aggressive, unpredictable, dangerously innovative. Now he understood why the Alliance had preferred the galaxy believe them extinct. Humans hadn't just survived. They had evolved beyond the constraints of conventional thinking, beyond the limitations the Alliance imposed on scientific progress. Beautiful, isn't it? Engineer Trika said, joining him at the viewport. Their technology, their thinking, it's what we always hope to achieve with our research. It's dangerous, Salver countered. All knowledge is dangerous in the wrong hands. Trika replied. The question is, whose hands are wrong? Before Salver could respond, the patterns outside changed, solidifying into recognizable stars as the ship emerged from phase space. Before them lay a star system unlike any in Alliance records, a binary star orbited by 12 planets, each showing signs of extensive development. Concordance Prime, announced Rise, entering the observation deck, home to 30 million humans, and increasingly, refugees from across the galaxy who sought something better than Alliance control. As the Horizont approached the central planet, a gleaming blue-green world ringed by orbital structures, Salver made his decision. The Alliance had abandoned his crew to die for asking dangerous questions. Humanity had risked exposure to save them for the same reason. The choice, when viewed that way, wasn't really a choice at all. When do we begin? He asked. Ray smiled. We already have, Captain. We already have. The Horizonte descended toward the human homeworld, carrying with it not just the survivors of the Nebulon, but the seeds of a new understanding between species long separated by lies and fear. And as the great cities of Concordance Prime came into view, monuments to what could be achieved beyond the constraints of Alliance thinking, Salver realized that being abandoned in the dark had led them, unexpectedly, to the dawn of something extraordinary. Humanity had not just survived. They had thrived. And now, perhaps, they would help the rest of the galaxy do the same.